Hello everyone, welcome to the second part of the recap for the Monster Project. Due to copyright restrictions, I wasn't able to combine both videos into one. You can find the first part linked in the description below. Make sure to watch it for better understanding before continuing with this part. Meanwhile, during Shiori's interview, she claims that the bad man has been with her since birth, and promised to leave her if she did the interview. As Shiori shows the crew wounds inflicted by the demon, the video feed begins to glitch, and suddenly, Shiori starts screaming, telling the crew that the bad man is near, and at that moment, the power in the house goes out. Muriel decides to head to the basement to restore the power, and while on her way, she hears strange noises coming from one of the rooms. She finds Steven removing the boards from the windows, and as the full moon shines through, Steven begins to transform into a werewolf. Horrified, Muriel rushes back to warn the others. Meanwhile, Shiori becomes fully possessed and begins terrorizing the group. At the same time, Shayla, who has transformed into a vampire, joins in the attack, and the group seeks refuge in another room. While they are trying to process the chaos, Jamal is attacked and dragged away by the werewolf. Hearing the screams, Brian returns to the house and reunites with Devon and Muriel, and the three arm themselves with artifacts tied to the mythology of each monster, hoping they can use them for protection. As they hear Jamal's cries for help, they begin searching for him, and during their search, Brian encounters the possessed Shiori. Muriel and Devon find Brian unconscious on the floor but manage to wake him up. After helping him to his feet, the group continues their search for Jamal, whose screams grow louder, and eventually they find him in a room badly injured but alive. Jamal explains how he managed to escape the werewolf, and Devon readies the gun. Suddenly, Brian is attacked by Shayla, who is now fully transformed into a vampire. Despite Devon shooting her, Shayla refused to die and continues her assault. The group tries to escape, but Muriel is overpowered and dragged to the attic by the vampire. Determined to rescue her, Devon and Brian follow her upstairs, and when they reach the attic, they find the vampire biting Muriel's neck. Though they attempt to intervene, Shayla overpowers them both, and as the vampire is about to bite Brian, Jamal arrives just in time, driving a stake through Shayla's heart, killing her. After saving Muriel, the group helps her up, but their relief is short-lived as the werewolf returns and attacks again. Brian shoots it, but just like Shayla, the werewolf refused to die, and they enter another room. Realizing their ammunition is running low, the group decides to outmaneuver the werewolf by sneaking through a back door. They enter another room and discover Shiori hiding in a closet. Seeing that Shiori is not currently in her demonic form, the group urgently tries to figure out a way to escape before she becomes possessed again. The group is once again chased by the werewolf, and they race to the nearest exit, only to discover that all the doors and windows are sealed. Everyone is trapped in the house.
Come on! Hurry! Get in!
With no escape, they rush to the basement where they find a pentagram drawn on the floor, and Shiori, who is becoming unstable, warns them that they shouldn't be down there. Brian crawls through an opening in the basement, trying to find a way out but is suddenly confronted by a shadowy figure wearing a goat skull mask. The eerie figure blocks his path, forcing Brian to retreat in terror. When Brian returns, the group realize that Shiori has mysteriously gone missing. As they search for her, Brian encounters the possessed Shiori, who ominously tells him that it's time for him to pay for his sins. Just before the possessed Shiori can harm him, the group manage to pull Brian out of the opening and drag him to safety. However, Shiori reappears, fully possessed, and begins chasing them again. The group manage to restrain the possessed Shiori, and Brian, desperate to save everyone, tries to perform an exorcism on her. However, the demon inside her is too powerful. Shiori breaks free from the restraints and launches at Brian, knocking him unconscious. Brian is then plunged into a nightmarish vision where he is forced to confront the spirits of his friends who died from the tainted drugs he once supplied. The demon accused Brian of causing their deaths, tormenting him with guilt and regret. Returning to reality, Brian continues the exorcism on Shiori, and his efforts eventually succeed in freeing her from the demon. However, as Shiori recovers, Muriel suddenly goes into convulsions and the demon, now moving into her body, reveals itself as Baphomet to the group. It ominously declares, he is coming before the exorcism banished the demon and Muriel returns to normal. Just as the group begins to catch their breath, the demon starts possessing Shiori again, and with no other options, they kill her on the pentagram to stop the demon for good. Meanwhile, Jamal's wound worsens, causing him to feel increasingly ill, and Brian tries to calm him down and keep him steady. As the situation becomes more dire, the skinwalker reappears, and believing his death is near, Jamal makes the self-sacrificial decision to face the skinwalker while the rest of the group escapes the basement. The skinwalker chase the trio and Brian gets separated from Muriel and Devon, who manage to lock themselves in a room. Inside, Muriel starts to feel sick, vomiting blood and dying slowly from the vampire bite. As she pleads for help, Devon coldly reveals that she was part of his plan all along before leaving her behind. Brian later finds Muriel lifeless on the floor, and as he begins to mourn her, Muriel suddenly transforms into a vampire and attacks him. In self-defense, Brian kills her with a stake through her head, apologizing for not being able to save her. The werewolf soon enters the room and begins to chase Brian through the mansion. Brian managed to open a window, which is located at second story, but he is hesitant to jump, and suddenly, the werewolf catch up to him and push him down. Still in werewolf form, Steven continues to pursue Brian, who runs into the forest, and after a long run, he takes refuge in an abandoned cabin. Inside the cabin, Brian faces another attack from the werewolf, and after a fierce struggle, he managed to kill the beast by impaling it with a spear. As he searched the cabin, Brian discovers satanic symbols, photographs, and monitors recording the events of the night, revealing that the sacrifices were all part of a deliberate plan. Brian is suddenly confronted by a robed cultist wearing an animal skull mask, who ominously declares, he is coming. Brian then sees Devon at the door, accompanied by several other robed cultists who enter the room. It is revealed that Devon orchestrated the entire horrifying ordeal as part of his involvement with a demonic sect, and the goat-headed creature was merely a fantasy of one of the cult members. As Brian starts to pray for salvation, Devon uses his supernatural powers to knock him unconscious. When Brian regains consciousness, he finds himself bound to a chair, and Devon explains that the night's gruesome events were part of an occult ritual, intended to ensure that everyone in the house dies. The bodies of Steven, Shayla, Shiori, and their victims are arranged on a pentagram. The robed cultist, now revealed to be Richard, the mansion's caretaker, declares, anoint the head of your king, and he removes his mask and places the animal skull on Devon's head. Richard thanks his wife, Martha, before making a dark invocation to Satan and slit Brian's throat. As Brian's blood is offered to the ritual, a shadowy figure with horns and wings emerge from the wall, roaring loudly and knocking over the camera, causing it to stop recording. The camera briefly comes back on and Brian is revealed to be a vampire, having been bitten when attacked by Muriel. Okay guys, that's all the recap about the Monster Project from 2017. Thanks for watching, see you again in the next video.